You fired her for showing kindness. You made a serious mistake, Liliamo. Shoma, kind-hearted waitress at a small town cafe, defended a biker who was unfairly judged by the customers as a troublemaker rather than being praised. Her boss fired her, but her kindness didn't go unnoticed. 30 minutes later, the biker returns with his crew setting off. A chain of events that will change Lily's life in ways she never imagined. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Unveiled Narratives. Today, I have another heartfelt story to share with you. Lily had been working at the cafe for years, choosing its warmth and familiarity over bigger opportunities to her. This place was more than just a job. It was a second home, a space where she belonged. The listeners greeted her by name, and she knew their orders before they even asked at one table. An elderly man struggled to lift his cup, his hands unsteady with age. Lily paused, gently steadying his grip as he brought the coffee to his lips. Here, let me help you, she said softly. The old man chuckled, his eyes twinkled with gratitude too. Kind, my dear, always looking out for us old folks. Lily smiled. Someone has to, she teased with a playful wink before moving on. Acts like these were second nature to her. Small gestures that made her beloved by the regulars. It wasn't the pay that kept her here. It was the people, the sense of community. Her coworkers often joked that she cared more about the customer than the cafe's owner did. A sentiment that wasn't far from the truth. Outside, the storm raged on, rain slamming against the windows in a relentless rhythm. The steady drumming filled the pauses between conversations. As Lily's gaze flicked to the street, drawn by a shadow moving through the downpour, a motorcycle emerged from the rain, its headlights carving through the misty air. The bike rolled to a slow stop. At the curb, its rider a shadowy figure. Against the storm, the door swung open, and for a moment, all conversation in the cafe stopped. The biker stepped inside, rainwater dripping from other jacket pooling onto the floor. His rugged appearance immediately drew attention. Tattoos snaking down his arms, a thick beard framing a weathered face, and boots caked with mud. Without a word, the biker stepped further. Inside, rainwater dripping from his jacket and pooling onto the floor. His gaze swept the room, but he kept his head low as if trying to shrink under the weight of the stairs. His boots made soft thuds against the wooden floor as he walked toward a corner table. Parents instinctively pulled their children closer, their weary glances betraying unease. A man in a suit shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his eyes darting toward the biker before quickly looking away. A hushed tension settled over the room, the kind that spoke louder than words. It was clear what everyone was thinking. They saw him as trouble, someone who didn't belong in their quiet, predictable cafe. Lily watched the scene unfold from behind the counter, her heart sinking. The weight of judgment in the room was almost tangible, and she could see the discomfort etched on the biker's face as he quietly made his way to the farthest corner. His shoulders were hunched, and his damp jacket left a small puddle on the floor. After a brief pause, Lily took a deep breath, determined to break the tension. She grabbed a towel from behind the counter and approached his table with a warm smile. She extended the towel toward him. Hi there, she said. Gently rough weather out there, huh? The biker looked up, his expression softening. At her kind tone, yeah, just needed to get out of the storm for a bit. Warm up, of course. Can I get you something to eat or drink? Lily asked, her smile unwavering. He hesitated for a moment. Just coffee, he said, then added with a hint of embarrassment, left my wallet in my other jacket. Didn't even realize until I got here. Lily saw the embarrassment in his eyes and the way he avoided meeting her gaze. She could sense what he was feeling. Not just the frustration of forgetting his wallet, but also the weight of the judgmental stares from the other customers. Don't worry about it, she said warmly. The coffee's on me. And how about a sandwich? You look like you could use something warm. The biker shook his head. That's too generous. I don't want to impose. It's no bother, Lily replied with a reassuring smile. Stay right there. I'll be back in a minute. Lily walked back to the counter, opened her tip jar, and pulled out a few dollar bills. She ordered a sandwich and poured a fresh cup of coffee. Balancing the coffee carefully, she brought the steaming cup over, setting it down gently. She said the sandwich will take a few minutes. Tight as she waited for the sandwich to be prepared, a middle-aged man sitting with his family leaned back in his chair. His voice was loud enough to carry across the cafe, his tone laced with disdain. Looks like the biker gangs are making their rounds. Isn't it bad enough? They're wrecking bars a few towns over. His comment drew a few nervous chuckles and sidelong glances from nearby tables. The tension thickened in the room as if everyone was collectively holding their breath. The biker, who had been quietly sipping his coffee, froze for a moment. His gaze flicked toward the man, then quickly to the floor. His shoulders stiffened, and he placed the mug down. Carefully, his eyes darted toward the exit, a subtle but telling movement that Lily caught immediately. She had been watching him closely, not out of suspicion but out of concern. There was something in the way he held himself, like a man used to being judged, carrying the weight of 1,000 wrong assumptions. He hadn't said a word since entering, and yet he already looked ready. To leave, Lily didn't hesitate. She stepped back toward the family's table, her expression calm but resolute. "Excuse me," she said, her tone polite but firm. "He's just here to get worn and have a meal, that's all. Whatever happened in another town doesn't have anything to do with him." The man arched, an eyebrow leaning slightly forward. "You don't know that," he said, gesturing subtly toward the biker. "People like him don't just stop by for coffee. You should be careful who you're so eager to defend." Lily held her ground, her voice steady as she replied, "I know he hasn't caused any trouble since he walked in. He's just sitting there minding his own business. Isn't that enough?" The man looked taken aback, as if he hadn't expected her to push back. His wife placed a hand on his arm, murmuring something under her breath, and let out a huff, leaning back in his chair with a dismissive shake of his head. And Lily turned away. She noticed the biker shifting in his seat, his eyes now fixed on the exit door. He stood his chair, scraping softly against the floor, and grabbed his jacket. She moved toward him, quickly intercepting him before he could leave. "Hey," she said gently, her voice soft but clear. "You don't have to go. It's still pouring out there." The biker hesitated, his eyes flickering with something between gratitude and unease. "I don't want to cause any more trouble," he said quietly, his voice gruff, but not unkind. "You're not causing trouble," Lily assured him. "People can say what they want. It doesn't make them right." She gave him a warm smile, hoping to ease his discomfort before turning back toward the counter. The staff exchanged uncertain glances but said no more. Their murmurs fading into the background, Lily turned her attention back to her task, her meal still lingering on the conversation she had overheard. But before she could think more on it, the soft chime of the doorbell signaled a new arrival, and heads instinctively turned toward the entrance. Mr. Carver, the cafe's owner, stepped inside, shaking the rain off his umbrella. A man in his late 50s, he was always neatly dressed in a tailored vest and polished shoes, exuding an air of authority. His sharp eyes scanned the cafe, not out of concern for the atmosphere, but for the bottom line. To him, customer satisfaction wasn't about kindness or connection. It was about keeping business steady and profits high. As he walked in, his eyes scanned the room with practiced efficiency. The usual hum of chatter was absent, replaced by a charged silence. Normally his presence drew warm smiles and greetings from the regulars. Today, however, the familiar faces were shadowed with unease, their usual cheer replaced by quiet tension. Lily, standing behind the counter, noticed it too. Her gaze shifted across the room, and she spotted one particular customer, a man she recognized from earlier in the day. He had been visibly annoyed when she defended the biker after the man made a pointed comment about the presence. Now he stood near the doorway, with his family gesturing toward the counter. His body language radiated frustration as he spoke briefly with Carver, though Lily couldn't hear the exact words. However, the frequent glances he threw in her direction and toward the biker seated quietly in the corner made it obvious what the subject his complaint was. Lily's stomach sank as she watched him shake his head, disappointment, his gestures growing sharper before he turned and led his family out of the cafe. Lily glanced around the room. The other customers avoided her gaze, their awkward shuffling and hushed murmurs betraying their discomfort. A few exchanged uneasy looks, clearly unsure of how to react. The judgment that had lingered in air since the biker's arrival now seemed directed toward her, as was obvious to Carver. The usually welcoming, buzzing cafe had become a place of discontent. Customers weren't just uneasy, they were clearly unhappy. His eyes flicked between the biker and Lily before he stepped toward the counter, frustration tightening his jaw. "Lily, said his voice sharp and deliberate. "We need to talk now." Lily turned to face him, her expression neutral, but her posture tense. "Is something wrong?" "Mr. Carver, don't act like you don't see it," he snapped, gesturing toward the door where a man and his family had just left. "That was a regular, a loyal customer, and now he's gone. You know why? Because of this." He jerked his chin toward the biker in the corner. "People like that don't belong here." Lily's eyes darkened, but her voice remained steady. "Sir, he hasn't done anything wrong. He's just eating his food, like everyone else. I won't throw someone out just because of how they look," Carver scoffed. "It's not about how he looks, Lily. It's about business. They make my customers uncomfortable. And when customers leave, my money leaves. That's what matters, not your little moral stand. Lily's hands curled into pièce, fist at her side. So you want me to throw him out just to keep your profits? Safe, Carver narrowed his eyes. I want you to do your job. This is my cafe, my rules. If you don't like it, you're free to dine. And the door Lily inhaled sharply. That's not right, Mr. Carver. This isn't just about money. Everything is about money, Carver. Cut in coldly, you think kindness pays. The bills you think a warm smile puts. Food on the table, he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. The world doesn't run on good intentions. Lily, it runs on power, reputation, and profit. You're either smart enough to keep up or you get left. Behind Lily's stomach twisted. She had always known Carver was ruthless when it came to business, but hearing so plainly left her speechless. Yet Carver adjusted his sleeves with a sigh, barely looking at Lily. You're a waste. My time, you're fired. Finish your shift, take your check, and leave. Lily froze, her mouth opening slightly as if to argue, but no words came out. She looked around the cafe, at the disappointed faces, the uneasy staff, and finally at the biker, who was now watching the exchange with a sharp, focused gaze. Carver turned, already done with the conversation, but before he could take a step, the biker pushed back his chair and stood. His movements were slow, deliberate, hold on his deep voice cut through the silence. He stepped forward, the weight of his boots against the tile making each step feel heavier. His eyes locked onto Carver, steady and unwavering. You're firing her. His tone was calm, but there was something beneath. It's something controlled yet dangerous. For what? Showing basic decency, Carver folded his arms, trying to appear unaffected. This isn't your business. The biker's lips curved into a tight smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Oh, it will be. Don't worry, Lily, he said, turning to her. Your kindness won't go unnoticed. Some debts get paid in ways you can't imagine. With one last sharp glance at Carver, the biker stepped away and headed for the door. The sound of it closing behind him left an uneasy silence in the cafe, broken only by the clinking of cups and murmured conversations. Carver, despite his composed exterior, couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made a serious mistake. Lily swallowed hard, a tangled mix of fear and hope churning inside her. She had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain. Her kindness hadn't gone unnoticed. She stood motionless for a moment, her gaze drifting toward the door the cafe once had called second home, where she'd poured her heart into every shift. Now felt foreign, almost suffocating, and she tried to focus, pushing through the last hour, but the seconds dragged. Half an hour passed in a blur of restless movements, wiping down counters, taking orders, exchanging brief silent glances with coworkers. The weight of her dismissal lingered, making every task feel heavier than before. Then, just as she was preparing to make her way to the back off to collect her paycheck, a local interrupted the quiet of the cafe, its sound growing louder, as if something or someone was approaching. At first, Lily brushed it off as just the usual traffic rumbling along the main road, but soon the sound intensified, becoming louder, more steady, almost rhythmic, like a pulse vibrating faintly through the walls of the cafe. She paused, her senses sharpened, and turned toward the front of the building, wondering what it was. One by one, motorcycles thundered through the parking lot, the deep rumble of their engines growing steadily louder. Bikers, clad in leather jackets and worn denim, their faces hidden behind dark helmets and sunglasses, emerged from the haze of noise. The lot, once half empty, was soon overtaken by a growing sea of bikes. Dozens, then scores, and finally over 100 lining up with military precision. Each bike's arrival sent a ripple of energy through the air, their engines thundering in the sound, vibrating the ground beneath Lily's feet. From a distance, the clink of chains and the subtle rustle of leather cut through the stillness. Their eyes, hard and unyielding, scanned the space as they moved with an air of command. This wasn't just a pit stop. Something was about to change inside. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Conversations halted and customers froze mid-bite, their eyes drawn to the spectacle unfolding. Outside, a woman near the window grabbed her coat, muttering something about leaving before things got worse. A young couple hastily paid their bill, glancing nervously toward the door behind the counter. Lily's coworkers exchanged wide-eyed glances. Joshua, barista, leaned toward her, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and accusation. What did you do, Lily? He whispered, barely audible over the distant rumble of engines. Lily didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the lead biker who had dismounted and was walking toward the cafe door. As the door swung open with a jingle, she immediately recognized him. It was the same biker she had defended earlier. The room fell silent as he stepped inside, his boots echoing against the tiled floor. His presence commanded attention, but there was no menace in his expression, only calm determination. Lily gripped the strap of her bag tightly as he approached the counter. When he stopped in front of her, he removed his helmet, revealing a kind yet serious face. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself earlier, he said, his deep voice filling the quiet cafe. I'm Marcus, leader of this crew. Lily nodded, trying to steady her voice. I'm Lily. Marcus smiled faintly. I know I owe you a lot. You stood up for me when no one else would. People judge me by how I look, but you saw me as a person. That's rare, and it means more than you know. Lily shrugged, though her cheeks flushed. I just did what anyone should do. No, Marcus said firmly. Most people wouldn't have, and we don't forget kindness like that. He turned to the rest of the cafe, his voice rising slightly. We're not here to cause trouble. We're here to show our gratitude to everyone. Surprised, the bikers began filing into the cafe. Their intimidating presence softened as they started placing orders. But instead of just ordering for themselves, they insisted on paying for everyone in the room. Get whatever you want, Marcus said, addressing the stunned customers. It's on us. The atmosphere in the cafe began to shift. Customers who had been uneasy moments ago now looked at the bikers with curiosity and gratitude. Marcus turned back to Lily, his expression gentle but resolute. We couldn't just stand by after what happened earlier. You stood up for me, and because of that, you lost your job. I hate that I was the reason for your trouble, but we're here to make things right. Before Lily could respond, he gave a subtle nod to two bikers near the door. They stepped forward, one holding a sealed envelope, the other a small set of keys. Marcus took them both and placed on the counter in front of her. This is for you, he said, his voice steady. Inside that envelope is the deed to a cafe a little ways from here. It's fully equipped, ready to go. My crew and I pitched in to make this happen. From now on, you'll have your own place where you make the rules, and no one can take that away from you. Lily's breath hitched as she stared at the envelope and keys, her hands trembling. I don't know what to say. This is too much. I can't accept this. Just having you all here means more than enough. Marcus smiled, shaking his head. It's not too much, Lily. You didn't just stand up for me. You stood up for all of us. People like us get judged all the time just because of how we look, but you saw past that. That kind of thing doesn't go unnoticed. A woman with braided hair and a warm, knowing smile stepped forward. Marcus told us what happened, and we all agreed someone like you deserves more than just a thank you. So we did something about it. We made you'd never have to deal with someone like that cafe owner again. The other bikers nodded, their expressions kind but unwavering. Lily swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. But I don't even know any of you. Why would you do something like this for me? A burly biker let out a deep chuckle. You helped one of volume ours, Lily. That makes you family, and in this family we take care of our own. Lily blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the tears burning her eyes. I still don't feel right about this. I didn't do what I did expecting anything in return. I just did what anyone should have done. That's exactly why you deserve it, Marcus said firmly. And we're not taking no for an answer. This isn't charity, Lily. It's gratitude from all of us. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, and another biker added, besides, we're not just handing you a cafe and riding off into the sunset. We'll be here when you need us, helping you get started. You're not alone in this. Lily let out a breath. She didn't realize she was holding a tearful smile breaking through as she clutched the envelope to her chest. Don't even know how to thank you all. This means everything to me, Marcus grinned. You've already done more than enough. Now it's your turn to let others help you. Just promise us one thing. When you're running that cafe, don't change who you are. The world needs more people like you. Lily nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She didn't need to say anything else. She simply knew she had found more than just kindness. Today she had found family. The cafe was buzzing with activity as the bikers chatted with customers and staff, their loud laughter and genuine warmth filling the room. Plates of food and cups of coffee were handed out, paid for by the bikers, who made sure no one left hungry near the back. Standing stiffly at his office door, Carver watched the scene unfold. His arms were C.R. Frost, but his posture lacked its usual authority. His eyes flicked between the smiling customers and the bikers, his jaw tight as the reality settled in his cafe. The one he had ruled with a rigid hand was more alive than it had ever been, and it had nothing to do with him. For a brief moment, his gaze landed on Lily. The cheers, the gratitude, the respect, things he had never given her, were now pouring in from complete strangers. He quickly looked away, shifting his stance as if trying to reclaim some semblance of control, but no one was paying him any attention. One of the bikers raised his voice as he stood by the door. Let this be a reminder, don't judge people by how they look sometimes. The roughest looking folks are the ones with the biggest hearts. The room quieted for a moment as the words sank in, then a ripple of applause broke out, growing louder until the entire cafe was clapping. Lily looked around, overwhelmed by the gratitude and warmth filling the space. For the first time that evening, she felt hope, a belief that things were going to be okay. Marcus gave her a small nod before turning to leave. We'll see you around, Lily, and don't worry, we'll make sure your new place is a success. As the bikers mounted their motorcycles and rode off into the night, the cafe felt lighter, brighter, as if weight had been lifted. Lily clutched the keys in her hand, a smile breaking through her tears, and that moment she realized that sometimes kindness had a way of coming back to you in ways you'd never expect. A few weeks passed, and Lily's cafe quickly became a beloved spot in town, warm, welcoming, and filled with the scent of fresh coffee and homemade pastries. It was everything she had once dreamed of. Customers who had once sat in Carver's cafe now chose hers instead, drawn by the kindness she poured into every interaction. Her care for people, her genuine smile, things Carver had dismissed as unimportant, became the very foundation of her success. Carver, on the other hand, watched from a distance as his once thriving business emptied out. His rigid rules and cold demeanor could no longer compete with the warmth of Lily's cafe. Day by day, his regulars stopped coming, preferring the place where they were, greeted with a smile, where their names were remembered and where they felt at home. One afternoon, the familiar rumble of motorcycles echoed down the street. The biker crew, true to their word, made Lily's cafe a frequent stop during their rides. As they filled the place with laughter and stories, Marcus leaned against the counter with a grin. Told you we'd make sure this place was a success. Lily chuckled, glancing around at the bustling hair cafe. It was more than just a business. It was proof that kindness, no matter how small, always found its way back. And as she looked out the window, catching a glimpse of Carver staring from across the street, she felt no bitterness, only gratitude. Some lessons she realized taught themselves. Thank you for watching. This story moved you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to spread the inspiration. And before you go, check out the videos on your screen. They're filled with more heartwarming stories that we know you'll love. Click and keep the kindness flowing.